Welcome to Justice Counts, the podcast that goes beyond the law to what's important to you. Equal justice for all is a guidepost for our nation, but how do we achieve that? Here are your hosts, writer-commentator Bob Gaddy and novelist-attorney Mark M. Bello.
In February 2020, attorney Joseph Fawbush wrote a piece for FindLaw.com entitled, "Good News, People Think Lawyers Have an Average Amount of Integrity Now." Wow, just average? In the new book, Filthy Rich Lawyers, The Education of Ryan Coleman, attorney Brian Felgoise and a co-author, David Tabatsky, explore that dubious claim. It's a sometimes hilarious novel, and the opening scene sets the stage when a young, ambitious lawyer named Ryan Coleman, decked out in his best suit and fancy shoes, is dressed down by the judge for falsely claiming that his $250,000 share of a settlement would not come out of the plaintiff's piece of the pie. That scene draws you in, and as a reader, you're hooked. Now, the author, Brian Felgoise, is a graduate of Temple University Law School and has been practicing class action law for more than 25 years, including cases where billions of dollars have been recovered for class members who lost a significant amount of money. David Tabatsky has co-authored, and edited many novels, including The Boy Behind the Door, Friends Like These, The Marijuana Project, The Battle of Zigzag Pass, and Drunk Log. His memoir, American Misfit, was published in 2017. Tabatsky was consulting editor for Marlo Thomas in her New York Times bestseller, The Right Words at the Right Time, Volume 2.
Hey guys, welcome to Justice Counts.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed the book, although I confess I haven't read the whole book. I'm wondering, listening to Bob read your bios, this seems to me to be a strange collaboration, you two guys. You have very different resumes, very different life experiences. How did you guys get together?
Well, Brian first approached me to work with him on a nonfiction version of some of his experience, especially with Halliburton and the burn pits, and when Dick Cheney was running that organization. And so we put together a nonfiction book proposal, drawing on those experiences, and it was shopped around by an agent, and the feedback was positive, but there were quite a few publishers who said, well, Halliburton, Dick Cheney, that's old news for us. We don't see a moneymaker for us there. So they took a pass. And so then Brian asked me if I would be interested to work on a novel, because he thought, wow, we could really just have a lot of fun doing a novel version inspired by some of this. And so that's how that transition happened.
Okay, so I guess Brian came up with the idea for this book then, right?
Well, yeah, it's based on his, I'm not a lawyer. It's based on his experience as a lawyer. But I loosely based, because the stuff in the book. No, I'm just working as Brian's potential divorce lawyer to tell his wife that none of that really happened. He's a good guy, and he's not the pervert that so many of other people in the book are. Yeah, so I just want to make that clear. Yeah,
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. But I'm doing him a favor.
But were you guys friends before? I mean, how did you get together?
Well, we had known each other through a common acquaintance in Philadelphia, and then, as it turned out, in between, I did a memoir for somebody that knew Brian's family, that came through another source, and then in between, though, I ended up working with Brian's mother on a memoir. Brian's mother was an extraordinary human being. She was a single mother to 4 rambunctious boys when her husband and Brian's father died young, very unexpectedly, and she ended up raising the 4 of them, going to law school, becoming a lawyer herself, in those times, this was no easy thing for a woman to do. And yeah, she was amazing. So I worked with her on her memoir, and then Brian and I kind of reacquainted, and we're kind of rebooted this idea of the whole class action thing and lawyers and everything, going from nonfiction to fiction. But as you see in the book, sometimes the lines are blurry between nonfiction and fiction, especially when it comes to these stories.
As an author myself, I'm interested in your process. Was this a true collaboration? Did you guys write different sections, or did Brian tell you a story and then you wrote what you heard? How did it work?
Well, I'd like to weigh in on this. For the proposal that we did for, we had a chapter outline. It was pretty extensive chapter outline, and then we didn't follow it to a T. We, in fact, about halfway through the novel, we made a major change. We changed the sex of one of the lead character lawyers. We turned him into a her, and basically that was the process.
Why discriminate?
Yeah, but wait. To clarify, the gender of the character was changed behind the scenes. The character doesn't
no. I didn't mean
in the story.
Like he didn't have it. It was just like I was talking with a friend, and we wanted to have the female character, and I have two basically 21 and 20-year-old girls, and I want to show them that females can be successful in a male-dominated field, and that's what David and I changed.
I understood the reference. There's a lot of great one-liners in the book. One that basically summarizes the whole thing up is, quote, "It's a dirty job and somebody's got to do it." Does this book play into every terrible stereotype of lawyers? You've even got a story in there where Hollis, the guru of the class action guys, makes a lawyer disappear.
So,
does the book ever compliment lawyers?
What I would say is that
why should it?
Ryan Coleman is loosely based on me. That's it. As far as every other character was completely made up, and it was based on some of the lawyers that I've dealt with as far as scheme work, but the characters were really made up.
So did you ever go into court trying to get into the courthouse with shoes that had metal plates in them?
Yeah, so that's what happened when that's a true story. When David and I were working on the memoir, we had to do 2 live chapters, and that was a true story. As far as, so we just translated it to that's what happened to Coleman.
I love that. It was a riot. And last night I was reading it in bed, and my wife said, "Are you ever going to stop reading that book, or are we going to go to sleep here?" I said, "Well, I got to find out what happens to this guy. The judge is really pissed off."
Yeah, we want to break up as many marriages as possible, with this book.
I love how you had the judge dressing this guy down. I thought it was great. Anyway, it's a
little extra. For example, when you talking about the line between fiction and nonfiction, like the judge in the real courtroom, the federal courthouse, she was a female. Yeah. We changed her name, obviously, but her behavior was fairly consistent. But like all the protesters and the other stuff that was going on, that was blown up. Yeah, of course. Okay. Yeah.
Now, there are multiple examples of lawyers receiving fees way out of proportion to the plaintiff's recoveries. I remember the Blockbuster litigation where the litigants each got a $5 coupon and the lawyers made millions. Are lawyers paid fairly in these cases, or does the system need a fix?
That sounds like a Brian question.
Well, so what I was involved with was securities class action, and basically they were all lawsuits that were dealing with underlying stocks. And it wasn't like everyone hears about where the class gets coupons and the lawyers get millions of dollars in fees. It really wasn't like that. What happens in securities class action is the lawyers receive a windfall, and Congress passed it's called the PSLRA, Private Securities Litigation Reform Act, was passed in the mid 90s. And what the lawyers are set up, they help police the corruption as far as the corporate greed. And as a result, the lawyers receive a windfall. That's it. But it's not like any lawsuit has to be approved by a federal judge. And David and I had conversations about that. The federal judges have to be appointed by, vetted through Congress. So there's definitely been some lawsuits that I've been involved with that the class didn't receive that much, and the lawyers definitely had a nice payday.
But on the other hand, you've got situations like Enron and Halliburton and bad players like that who made a fortune, and you recover money back for the government or the citizens. And even if you receive, in the Enron case, $688 million, 5 times billable hours, a judge has to approve that. You you use an example in your book about a painter who offers to paint a house for $400 and the homeowner offers him $2,000. Who'd refuse that, right?
Right. Well, remember, it was a satire, and we wanted to, make the point. But with an Enron case, is the judge that approved it, the lawyer had an agreement with CalPERS, is the California Pension Fund, and the agreement was based on the recovery that he was able to get. And the attorney for CalPERS was in court, and he blessed this settlement. And by the way, that settlement was incredible. I think it goes down as the most incredible thing in modern day legal practice, because the lawyer was able to get $7.2 billion from all the banks, but two banks held out. They took it all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court says that the plaintiffs should get nothing. So this lawyer was able to recover $7.2 billion, where the Supreme Court said the plaintiff should get zero. That's incredible.
Well, so he was a good guy. Now, you've got another quote in the book that cracked me up. It says, "I do not give a shit about class members." This is from one of the big shot lawyers in the book. "I do not give a shit about class members. You hear me? I'm only concerned with the riches I develop from the practice of law." Now, that sounds like a stereotype to me. Is there any truth to that? I mean, is that how it really is? Is it all just a big money grab for these lawyers that are involved in this stuff?
Yes, it really is. And that quote came from a real live lawyer. And David and I created the character in the book, Smalley.
Uh-huh.
There wasn't a real Smalley, but there was a real lawyer who told me that exactly thing.
I'm not surprised.
And it is a money grabber, and these attorneys are really self-righteous. They don't really admit that it's just a money grabber.
Yeah. The book is very funny. I haven't read the whole book, but I've read a lot of it. And I went to David's website, and as a Jewish boy myself, I enjoyed all his shtick, especially the fact that he performed magic and comedy at bar mitzvahs. I presume he's the one with the big sense of humor. But Brian, are you funny too?
That's an unfair question to ask somebody. Yeah,
I guess he didn't hear me.
That's an unfair question to ask somebody. Are you funny?
I think I think you stumped him.
I'll ask David.
Yeah.
I'll ask David. Is Brian funny?
He can be, but I would say just it was a lot of fun to write because it's sort of like
What material, right?
Yeah, but somebody just said, "Hey, if you're a kid and your parents take you to the playground, you go and they say, "Hey, you can go play on anything you want." Right? And don't worry, if you fall off the monkey bars, you won't really get hurt. So what? Just go. And so that was what it was, like a playground. Brian kind of had certain, we had to be careful just, to not set up like technical legal things that weren't accurate or something like that. But that really wasn't that big of a deal. And it didn't happen that often. So, we could just go anywhere pretty much.
Yeah, there was another big shot quote in the book. Now this is from the lawyer that I think that Coleman guy in the beginning was trying to emulate.
Mm-hmm.
The guy says, "I have the greatest practice of law in the world because I have no clients." How in the hell can you have a practice if you don't have any clients?
I'll leave Brian to explain that one.
Wait, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, at the beginning of the book, you've got this guy that Coleman is trying to emulate, right? I can't remember the lawyer's name, but he is a very famous.
Yeah, that's
Smalley.
right.
That's
Smalley. And
Right.
that quote
Smalley.
was a real quote from one of the most successful lawyers. And that's really what he said. He has the greatest practice in the world because he doesn't have to answer to any clients. And that's really what it is.
Bob's question is, how is that possible? I kind of know, but I want. Can you tell the people how that's possible?
Well, so what happens is this: you file a
Brian?
lawsuit on behalf of one client, and you sue on behalf of everyone similarly situated. So you could have one client, and you could have a class of millions of people. So that's really what the quote's referring to.
Okay. All right. So it's like here in South Carolina where right now there's a big deal about one of the military bases. The water was back in the, I don't know, 80s or whatever. The water was contaminated and a bunch of people got cancer. And the lawyers are all over it. There's ads all over TV today. Sign up, we'll get you money if you got cancer. If you served in this base and you got cancer. So that's what you're talking about, right? Well, they'll file the case on behalf of one person, and then everybody who also was, as you said, similar situated, they also got sick from this water. They are all involved in the lawsuit. Is that right?
Yeah, that's sort of right. Yes.
That's correct.
But you know what? It strikes me as a non-lawyer who is just looking
That's
at this
correct, Bob.
through the eyes of being a storyteller. It looks to me like ambulance chasers on steroids.
Yeah, me too. I got to tell you that, David. Me too. I'm not a lawyer either, as you can tell.
Well, the other thing I would suggest to you non-lawyers is that if you're a referral lawyer in a class action situation, you literally don't have any clients. You're just waiting for a referral fee. It's kind of cool. I want to share a little anecdote with you guys. It's not a big part of the book, but it was interesting to me. And Brian, I want to hear your comment on it. Coleman and Waterman, one of the other experienced older guys, shared this story about the older lawyer and the younger lawyer, and the older lawyer is going to give the kid a lesson in the law and all that. And don't speak unless you're spoken to, he says to him. And the kid doesn't listen to him. But I remember early in my career, I had this small case and this older hotshot that graduated from Harvard, and he tells me he's going to give me a lesson in the law. And I declined his lesson, and I tried the case, and I beat him. And I'm wondering if Brian, you shared a similar situation in your real practice that caused you to put that in the book.
Well, so what happened in the court that day, which is a real live story, is I was supposed to get there early and share a cup of coffee with the local counsel for the book. We named them Waterman. And I got there late because of the traffic. And one thing he said to me, do not speak unless you're spoken to. And he kind of said it was, a little harsh. And I did exactly the opposite of what he told me. I stood up and volunteered something to the judge, and she took no mercy on me whatsoever. She ripped into me because I was attempting to BS her about the settlement, and she just did not let it go. And that's what the first 3 chapters of the book are about, the real life story.
Well, that brings up another point about being a young lawyer. Judges pick up on that. They deliberately humiliate you in front of your client. I've had experiences like that. She puts on a show for the voters, but she still signs the order. It was pretty typical, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yes, that's pretty typical.
And she signed the order. She granted the fee.
Well, I mean, no matter what I could do, she just didn't let up, and she didn't take too kindly to that. And this was real life. It was Northern District of Texas, and then this judge became the president judge of the Northern District of Texas court.
It struck me like and this was an idea that I had where but it would be too unrealistic, but it was funny in my mind to have Ryan Coleman get to the point, like literally ask the judge to write him a check right then and there in the courtroom, or just or if you don't have your checkbook, I'll take cash, and here's my briefcase. You can throw it right here. My briefcase. Nobody look. Hey, here. Look at the birds flying. And like, but it would have been a lot of fun, but it was so far fetched that yeah. Although I mean, now that I'm mentioning it again, I'm thinking, damn, maybe we should have done that. That would have been a lot of fun. Hopefully in the film version that might work really well. Yeah.
David, as Brian will tell you, the more likely scenario is that the judge finds you in contempt and you write the check.
That could happen, or they end up sleeping with each other, and nobody writes any checks. Right.
or that. Now, Brian, we have some of that in Detroit. I think.
You've been talking about how Coleman is really you in a lot of ways. So, do the big boys succeed in corrupting Coleman?
So I have issue with that because, and David can tell a story, is Coleman is loosely based on me. And loosely, I stress the word because he and I graduated from Temple Law School, and then he and I had the misfortune of both our fathers died early, young age. And that's really it. He lives in Philadelphia. We made it comical. He has a horrible marriage, and I don't. So other than graduating from Temple and
nobody succeeded in corrupting you, right?
Early, we have nothing else in common.
So that's good to know. He didn't answer that.
And I'll tell you this: I have friends who read it, and they can't get it out of their mind the whole time when Coleman's speaking. And that's what we do a lot. He's asked these questions. Is my friends say to me, I think it's you the whole time. They finish the book.
Well,
so they can't separate Coleman from me.
Well, you said you wore those fancy shoes, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so it's more than just you going to Temple and your dad's dying early. It's more than that, because at least you wore the same kind of fancy shoes, right?
Well, I just wanted to make that character was pretty big impact on my life. The fact that my dad died early, and I would tell you this. So I graduated law school, and my mom also graduated Temple Law School. She was up on stage. She handed me my diploma.
Wow.
And I graduated with 500 different lawyers, and I was the only one that both parents graduated Temple Law School.
Wow, that's impressive. All right, so now what about the world of the $375 million yacht and $16,000 bottles of booze and expensive hookers for class action lawyers? Is that fact or fiction?
I mean, it was a satire, so it's fiction.
Okay.
Well, it is and it isn't,
Yeah.
because the fact is there are plenty of billionaires who have yachts like that,
Sure.
and a fleet of private planes,
Sure.
and some of them are have accrued that wealth through practicing law.
Sure.
In the case of Randy Hollis, he goes from being a lawyer working with these enormous corporations to then getting their money to invest in these hedge funds that he does, and that just balloons his money beyond anything else that he could have done as a lawyer. So he's turned one into another, and the fact that he has all these escorts around working for him and taking care of him is kind of, I mean, I don't know. I'm not a billionaire. I don't hang out with these billionaires on their private islands and stuff. But I imagine some of them must be somewhat handicapped as human beings because they live in such a unrealistic bubble. They surround themselves with every little toy and indulgence they want, and I don't know how they are at having really good, healthy, sustained relationships.
Right.
So, for example, this guy Hollis. Not only does he not want people to potentially, woo him and get him married and get him into bad divorce situations, but I think it's much more than that, because a prenup could take care of so much of that. It's really like he just going back to when he was a child, which a lot of this stuff does. I don't mean to get into a serious psychological thing, but really bad behavior, whether we laugh at it or not, usually stems from some fucked up childhood, And I mean, just look at the people that we see in the public eye, and then find out a little backstory on what kind of parent they had. They had a domineering father, or an abusive mother, or a combination of both. That's why they end up to be such messed up adults. And then you put a lot of money, unlimited amounts of money in their hands, and power. Well, that just turns them into basically, real perverts. Yeah.
Okay. Oh.
I searched high and low in the book for a positive quote about lawyers, and I found, quote, "When I establish my position, no matter what it is, I will fight to the death. I'm not ever going to give up." I think it was Smalley that said that.
Yeah.
Was that a real quote? Is that based on a real lawyer?
Yeah, yes, that is a real lawyer had said that to me, exactly. And again, we created the character Smalley, but that was based on a real lawyer. That's what he told me.
Okay. There was another line in the book too that I found interesting. Practicing law is the opposite of sex. Even when it's good, it's bad.
Yeah.
I don't get that. Can you explain?
So,
I do. I do.
That is a real quote from Zuckerman, a famous real estate multi-billionaire.
Yeah.
And he said that quote, so we kind of grabbed it.
Okay.
Do you believe it?
Well, like the quote is, even bad sex is good.
Maybe you guys just haven't had enough bad sex to get the quote.
Maybe that's it. That's it. I'm trying to read this. Practicing law is the opposite of sex. Oh, so even when it's good, it's bad. I got it. Now I got it. Now I got it.
Even when it's good or great, it's bad.
Right.
Because sex, even when it's bad, it's
good. That's okay.
So I got it. So I presume most of these lines and most of these stories and anecdotes in the book are true. How about the one where the senior partner comes in and finds a bag of shit on his desk? True?
No, I don't think that's not technically true.
It's not technically true.
I'm being careful, just for legal reasons. I have to be careful what I'm saying here. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm sure, you know what though? That's something like sometimes you make something up as a novelist. You make something up, and then somebody says, "Oh, is that true?" And I go, "Well, not necessarily in this story, but I bet you somewhere in some other law firm that did happen because it's a fraternity behavior." Right. It's just like bad frat boys, and it's just bad frat boys, and you give them a better office and more money and better shoes, but they still behave the same, right?
Yeah.
I can tell you that there's a lot of lawyers I've worked with and for.
Yeah,
that I wouldn't mind leaving a bag on their desk. Anyway. What about the federal prosecutor wanting to take down Hollis and using Coleman to do it? Is that based on some fact situation?
Well, I mean, that was completely made up. We just needed a bad guy, and then in addition to Dick Dickey, so we just he was scorned from David and I tried to make it comical, where he goes to Columbia, and then Hollis takes his girlfriend. So,
but see, the thing to me, this is actually based on these are composites, these kinds of things, but it goes back again to the male behavior in fraternities, especially in like elite colleges and universities. And the same behavior permeates for a lot of these guys. It permeates the rest of their lives. They just have bigger toys to play with and bigger expense accounts, but they're still acting like the same jerk you see at a rush party in a fraternity when you're 18, 19 years old. The guy who was the high school quarterback, or the guy standing off the side who wanted to be the high school quarterback, who still resents the guys who got all the girls, When he couldn't get the cheerleaders, he had to go to the after-school science club and try to find somebody who might talk to him. Yeah.
Okay, hey, you guys have another book coming out, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we're just about to hand in book 2. Yeah.
And what is that?
Well, that's what happens to Ryan what picks up right after. It picks up literally from the minute book 1 ends. That's where book 2 begins. Right then. Yeah.
Okay. So
the contract that I signed with the publishing agreement called for a 2-book series.
I see. Okay. So where can people find your books and so on?
Oh, well, they can go search Filthy Rich Lawyers on Amazon. It's available now. The Kindle version is available for pre-order. And the whole thing, the regular book and Kindle and everything, the publication date is October 5th. So they just have to go on Amazon and hit Filthy Rich Lawyers, and it'll come up.
Okay, excellent.
All right, so here's my big question of the day. Brian's this big class action lawyer, so his resume says so. He makes all this money in the class action world. Why does he need to write a book? Doesn't he have all the money he needs? And why doesn't he share some with you? Then you don't need a book.
What kind of question is
that? Well, I thought I had a good story to tell. And then what had happened was when David and I were working on the memoir, because I'm not a celebrity, I figured that it would be a difficult sell. Like, I'm not a famous person, not a former congressman or something. So that's why I
had a love-hate relationship with this book.
Help,
I mean, being a lawyer for almost 50 years, and having a practice that really was a practice to try to help people and make money at the same time. It's difficult to read stuff like this, but I got to tell you, I know lawyers, stereotypical lawyers, just like the ones in the book, and I have to admit that they're out there. So
you had a love-hate relationship with the book. I had a love.
I'm sure you did. I'm sure you did. I'm not a lawyer who'll love this book.
Well, they should. They should, and you guys need to be commended for it. I think it's a terrific.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
No, thank you. Hey, Bob, I have a suggestion for you though. Those lawyers that you didn't like working with, this is the perfect book to buy for them and see if you can find yourself in this book.
I'll think about that. I'm gonna spend money on them and buy your book for them. I already think they're assholes. I'm not gonna spend any money on them. But I like the idea.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, listen. Hey, you guys, Brian and David, thanks for joining us today for our podcast. Mark and I are really grateful. And hey, guys, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. Meanwhile, if you haven't done so already, please check out Mark Bellows' Ripped from the Headlines Legal Thrillers. All of them are available at Amazon and other major online booksellers. You know, Mark has quite the hero in attorney Zachary Blake. Blake fights for justice on all fronts. His books are Betrayal of Faith, Betrayal of Justice, Betrayal in Blue, Betrayal in Black, Betrayal High, Supreme Betrayal, Betrayal at the Border. And his latest is not a betrayal book. It's called You Have the Right to Remain Silent. And it's won a couple of really cool awards already. For more information, just check out markmbello.com. Now, until next time, this is Bob Gaddy from Mark Bellows signing off on Justice Counts. Why should it?